Jacquelyn Darby. I do have a little brief bio here. So first, what we'll cover, and then we'll go into my bio. We're gonna cover what to research prior to launching a product or service. We're gonna create a launch plan and what we should include in that launch plan. And we're gonna talk about creating a launch experience. So a little bit about myself. I am a creative. I don't really go by a graphic designer or website designer or anything like that, but I do all of those things. I create experiences. Those are my favorite things to create. My background is in hospitality and marketing. So I studied marketing at Kent State University. While there, I became obsessed with the consumer experience and kind of from attraction to brand loyalty. What makes you pick up a box of cereal from an aisle to, okay, that's the only box of cereal I'm ever buying ever in my life. That's my thing. That's what I like to do. And then hospitality, a lot of my background is in hospitality. So private clubs, a lot of customer service, restaurants, those type of things. I was first established in 2014, but I've been doing this and this alone for about a year. It's been the craziest, most exciting year of my life. It's been really great. And the Women's Business Center has helped a lot. I was going there every week for a while. So Women's Business Center has helped a lot with me launching and me being successful and all that great stuff. So a few things I do: brand design, website design and development, social media management, packaging design, and consulting. A lot of my clients are starting their businesses for the first time. So I get to help them with launching and things of that nature. Okay, so to get started, part one is going to be on doing our homework. So before we can launch anything, we have to make sure that we do, of course, the groundwork behind that. I'm not sure why this is moving so fast, sorry about that. So our case study is Beyonce's self-titled album. It dropped Friday the 13th of 2013. If you all remember that, it was a crazy night. It was absolutely insane. It was completely by surprise. So there was no work before then. We didn't see a single, we didn't see any videos released, anything like that. And it dropped, I can't remember exactly what time. I remember my little sister calling me and like freaking out, but it dropped and it was absolutely crazy. It was 14 tracks. It was a 2-disc album. So we had all of our sound, and then we had our visual impact, and there was a video for each track on the album. That album, in 3 days, it sold 617,000. There were 617,000 downloads of that album. There were 1.2 million tweets in 12 hours regarding that album. And it rewrote the business model, because typically, I want to say albums dropped, Tuesdays, if I'm not mistaken. Now our albums drop on Fridays, and it's totally different, right? So that'll be kind of our case study, but unfortunately, we're not Beyonce. We can't just drop something without, anything, any anticipation or any buildup or anything like that. So that's where we're starting with. So things that we don't know about Beyonce's album and that self-titled album, but we can assume that she did some homework, right? She did some work. So I know with the Coachella, she said they practiced 8 months for Coachella. That was 2 weekends. They practiced 8 months for two weekends, or really just, 2 performances over 3 days or so. So there was, of course, a lot of planning involved, a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we had no idea about. But another thing that we know is that it was something completely new for her, for us, probably for her team. So with that being said, there was probably a little fear, a little anxiety there, a little like, oh no, what are we gonna do? So that's something that we can kind of relate. No, we're not Beyonce, but we can of course relate on that level with that. So things that we do know, when we're going to launch, we should know what makes us us, or what makes you you. That would be your unique selling proposition in this case. So it would be the thing that is different. Okay, yes, I'm selling cereal and Kellogg's has a million different cereals, but what makes my cereal different? What makes someone want to go buy my cereal and compare it to Kellogg's or anything else? So that's one thing that we should definitely know at this point when we're saying, okay, we're ready to launch. Another thing we should know is who needs to know who we are, and who needs to know us. So who is our target market? our target market, we had something that is really important. And I get a lot of clients who are like, well, I want to sell to absolutely everybody. And you can sell to everybody. There's no one stopping you from selling to everybody, but we should definitely focus on one person or one group of people first. It helps with absolutely everything. So it helps with how we sell, when we sell, all of those great things. And if we don't know those two things, if we don't know what makes us different and we don't know who we're selling to, we probably should go back and figure those out before we move forward with anything else. Things that we may not know, but we should know would be the best time to launch. So based on who our target market is and who we're directing our first, sales to, we should know things like, okay, what do they like to do? Is this a seasonal product? Is it something where, okay, it's for wedding season, and wedding season is between April and September? Is it something where maybe they only eat your cereal in the fall? So we need to know the timing of when we should introduce that product, and the best time to go about that. Part 2 will be making our plan. So with making our plan, our first step with that is to make a goal. Our goal should be SMART. So hopefully everybody remembers SMART goals or have heard of SMART goals before. SMART goals, I think I was introduced to this maybe sometime in college, but a SMART goal is a goal that is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So we can say, okay, I want to sell all of my boxes of cereal and I want to sell them to the entire world and I want to sell out. While that is a great goal to have, and it may be a great something to reach forward or reach to, it's not, the best goal to start with a launch. So with that goal, we want to make it specific. We want to say, okay, I want to sell 10 boxes of cereal. We want to make sure that it's attainable. Can I sell 10 boxes of cereal? Do I have the audience, enough people paying attention where if I only have 3 people paying attention and I want to sell 10 boxes, it may not go in our favor in that case. So we want to make sure that it's something that we can actually attain, and we want to make sure that it's measurable. So something quantitative, either a percentage or a number or a dollar amount. As far as attainable, a good thing to do that I try to get my clients to do is to do research, see how other people are selling, see how much they're selling if you can. Some information may be, public domain where you can see, okay, it's this many sales in a quarter. And if I break that down to a day, so on and so forth. And we want to also make sure that it's relevant. So if relevant to our field and relevant to what we're doing. So if we are selling these boxes of cereal, if we're like, well, I'm going to sell these boxes of cereal and I'm going to get on Oprah. One, Oprah, I don't even know if she still has a show anymore. And 2, it's not really relevant to what we're doing in this case. So we want to make sure it's relevant to what we're doing as far as when we set those goals. And time bound, we want to put a timestamp on that. So we want to say, okay, after a week of my online store being open, I want to have X amount of sales. That makes it something that you can, grasp. You can say, okay, well, if I want to have 5 sales in a week, that's a sale every business day, I can make that happen. You might get all 5 before then, but you definitely want to make that goal SMART, and you want to make it something that you can grasp and attain. Any questions? No? Okay. So next, a quick guide to planning our launch. So we want to create a timeline. Our timeline will be heavily based off of our timestamp. So that goal that we created before our SMART goal, and it of course be launched based off of our launch date. So the date that we put in place to put everything out. I like launch dates for Tuesdays. I can't remember where I gathered that information, but I enjoy launching on Tuesdays. So a lot of my clients, I launch their websites. If we're doing a social media campaign, if we're really doing anything, I like Tuesdays. I feel like the weekend is over. We're over the Monday blues. We just want to get through the week. And if we have something to sell, then it's like, okay, Tuesday, I know about it. By Friday, when I get paid, I'm ready. So I like Tuesdays for launches, but whatever your way to, think of that launch date, after your research and looking into your industry. And then we work backwards. So if I am launching on the 25th and I want my website done by the 18th, I want it completely done, maybe even before that, but making sure that we work backwards and we cross everything off. And we're gonna, speaking of crossing things off, we're gonna make a checklist. So the essentials for whether you have a product or service: testing. If you can test everything, I say test everything. If it's a product, if you can send it to an influencer or someone that's well known in the industry that can maybe write a blog post or get something rattling for that. Even if it's family or friends, hey, can you try this out for me? Can you see, if it's a t-shirt, can you see how this t-shirt wears? Can you wash it a couple of times, and can you account for the quality of it, so on and so forth. We want to start conversations. So our target market that we recognize and we know from the beginning before we started planning, we want to talk to them and make sure that we hear what they're saying, and we want to build anticipation with that. So if they're like, okay, I really want a good cereal and it has to be the best cereal in the entire world, we want to say, okay, I hear that. Well, what are you looking? What kind of flavors are you looking for with that cereal? And I have something for you. It's coming soon. We want to build that anticipation. A big way with doing that is through social media. So whether it's a countdown post or it is, teasers or anything of that nature, building the anticipation for your launch so that you're not the only one that knows about it. The kind of hardest thing or the worst thing is doing a launch and you being the only person that knows about your launch. Then those goals that we said at the beginning, we're not going to reach because no one knows about them. Something as far as our checklist goes that would be more so product-based is our selling platform. So what platform are we using? Is it Shopify? Are we using Wix? Are we using, trying to think of some other ones, whatever platform we're using, if we can do a trial with that platform. I know Shopify has maybe a 14-day trial that they allow you to kind of try things out with. So how are we going to actually present this to the world? Our packaging and our shipping. So this is another thing that can come back into what's testing. So if we can, okay, let me try shipping this to New York and see how it holds up. And, the same people that we are having testing, we can test those things too. And, make sure that all of our ducks are aligned. If we have packaging, okay, do we have to cover it with tissue paper? Do we need a special type of tape? Can we go talk to someone at the post office? Can we, talk to DHL? Should we have to weigh everything before we put it into Shopify? Those things, we want to make sure we try to cover all of those little details. As far as service-based, when we're planning how we're going to share our information. So for me, with website design, I have a pricing guide. That was a big piece of information that I had to get ready for my launch, is making sure, okay, this is how I'm going to share, what my packages are, and making sure that it's easy to read and easy to understand. And then our process. Okay, so once we, somebody has that pricing guide and once they know of our services, well, how do they book with us? So having that process down is extremely important. And then keeping it organized. I try to organize as best as I can. I organize so much that I'm unorganized at most points. So whether that's keeping a notebook or Google Docs, or a binder that just has all of our launch information or all of our processes in it. Keeping things organized, not relying on our head. A lot of times I know we're on the go and we're moving and we want to say, oh yeah, that's a great idea, but making sure we write things down and writing down our process. It's great because you can go back after the launch and like, okay, this works well, this didn't work too well. And it gives you a way to compare and contrast things of that nature. Okay. So resources, yes.
We had a question. I don't know if
yes, I'm sorry.
How important is your logo for launching a new business, from Ella?
So Ella, I personally, I think logos are important. I think a variety of logos are important. So that's one thing that I am very gung-ho about. And if we were to go into other conversations, but one thing that I'm really gung-ho about is having logos and making sure we have that brand recognition. but making sure that it's always a variety. So if we think of Nike, if we think of McDonald's, we can think of, let's say McDonald's, we have McDonald's written out, we have the golden arches. If we just see the M, we automatically think of McDonald's. If we just see, what is the clown's name from McDonald's? But the McDonald's man, we automatically think of McDonald's if we see red and yellow. So branding is definitely important. Logos are important. But with that being said, brands change, brands grow. I kind of think of brands as a baby. So they can grow and they can evolve. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. You know, we're not really aiming for perfection, but we're aiming to, you know, build that brand recognition and build that. So logos are very important. Ella, I hope I answered that completely for you. Cool. Any other questions? Okay. So resources that I use pretty daily to help with launches. So Google Docs. Google Docs are absolutely amazing. If you haven't used them yet, you should just use them. But they have everything from sheets, so you can go in and make an Excel sheet with a checklist. You know, you can do your documents in there, you can do presentations in there. But the really great part of Google Docs that I like, and especially when you're collabing with anyone, is you can go in and you can make notes. So it's like, okay, if, you know, this is our process and I want to go on, let's rethink this. I love that about Google Docs, and I love it because it's easily accessible. It's not something that you don't have to pay for. You can have Google Docs, and so I use Google Docs an awful lot. Unsplash and Pexels. So a lot of times it's not easy. I try to aim for branded content as often as I can. But a lot of times it's not easy to get branded content. So whether that is content for your website or it's content for your social media posts, Unsplash and Pexels are they're a database of images, more or less, that are stocked for your royalty-free images. So you can go on and use them as much as you like. And you don't have to say, like, it's nice to say like, oh, I got this from Unsplash, or oh, I got this from Pexels. But I use Unsplash and Pexels probably more than anyone in the world, maybe not, but I use them a lot. Another thing that I use often is Typeform. So Typeform is basically a, I don't want to call it an application, but an application where you can go on and you can build forms. So I put my inquiry form in there. I put information on my contracts in there. I put payment information, all of those things. I use Typeform for, but they're great for this testing cycle. So if we're like, hey, you got that product a little early, can you go and fill out a form for me really quickly and tell me how you like that, or tell me the benefits of that. It's a great way to collect information that way. And they have a really, really good interface. It looks really clean. So Typeform is another resource that I use a lot. And then Hootsuite. Hootsuite has been around for a while, but Hootsuite is great to plan content, plan social media content. So they allow you to connect as many online platforms as you like: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, so on and so forth. And you can go on and kind of get your content ready and geared up, which helps, especially with launching. It's one thing that you kind of don't have to worry about when you're planning for a launch. So if I know that I'm gonna place a countdown and the 3 is gonna be on the 11th and the 2 is going to be on the 13th, so on and so forth, I can go in and put those and have those ready to go, and then, you know, we can focus on other things. So I don't have to, you know, spend all day trying to think of a post. The post is geared up and ready to go, and then I can actually engage with my audience. And then Amazon and Etsy. So especially when we're starting small, Amazon and Etsy are great for packaging. You can kind of find any bubble mailer, any, you know, if you wanted custom mailers, there are a lot of people that go on and get those from their custom, just about anything. If you type those in, Amazon and Etsy are great for launching, and they kind of give you really, really great value for a lower dollar. Okay, so with our planning, we're going to give ourselves room for the unknown. We want to definitely plan things out. So we don't want to say, okay, well, I'm going to take these pictures on Tuesday and I'm going to have everything ready on Friday and we're going to launch on the following Tuesday. It's a really tight schedule. Things might come up. Life happens. We're in a pandemic, you know, all of those things. So we want to give ourselves room for the unknown, but we want to stick to the script. Something, especially when we plan things far out, sometimes we get a little discouraged or, you know, things might not go exactly the way we planned. And we're like, okay, well, we're going to push the launch date back one more season. And that can, you know, depending on what we're launching and what we're doing, and depending on our target market, that can kind of curve what we're doing. So we give ourselves room to grow and to learn and to test and to try and research and do all of that. But we definitely want to stick to our original SMART goal as closely and as possibly as we can. Okay, so part two is creating the experience. And this is my favorite part with any brand launch. So first things first is we're going to walk through it, and we're going to walk through it more than once. So if we have a Shopify store, if we have an e-commerce store, we want to actually go on once that store is posted, or even if it's still closed, we want to go on, okay, let me try to buy something from my store. Let me see what that experience is like. So let me put myself in the client shoes or in the customer shoes and see exactly how that goes. So we walk through it more than once. We have anybody else walk through it as well. Hey, Dad, can you walk through this for me? Hey, can you walk through this for me? We're gonna walk through that more than once, and actually take note and see what we like and what we dislike. And we want to visit every detail of that experience. So, hey, I didn't really like the way that button looked, or I didn't like the way, you know, that shipping was broken down, whatever the case may be. If we have it in our power to change, we want to make sure that we change whatever details that we see there. When we're walking through that experience and when we're setting up for a launch, it doesn't have to be perfect. We want to, of course, we have big dreams and big aspirations. And I know my first launch, I wanted it to be absolutely amazing. And it probably wasn't as amazing as I dreamt of it to be. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, you know, everything. And a lot of times we don't have the budget for it to be everything that we could possibly want, but it should be intentional. It should be, if it's something that, you know, if this sticker really means something, or if this card with our mission really means something to what we're doing, we want to make sure that's included. And we want to make sure that what we're doing is intentional, that our shipping, our how we're presenting this information, all of that is intentional. Perfect. So we make it to launch day. So we can breathe. The day of a launch is probably the scariest day for a lot of people, for most people. But we can breathe because we already did the work. We did our research. We looked at our industry. We know who our fans, our stands are. So we breathe and we're like, okay, this is here. We can pop champagne. We can celebrate however we celebrate. But we do want to interact. We don't want to launch and then be like, okay, well, it's up there, and go completely dark. We want to interact with our stands, interact with people who love it, and, you know, all of that great stuff. We want to appreciate them, tell them thank you for, you know, purchasing from us, or whatever the case may be. But of course, we want to celebrate and enjoy that moment as well. So our launch day may not be flawless, but it will be as intentional and as timed as we possibly can make it. But we're still going to celebrate that, and we're still going to look at those wins. Okay, so the day after, when we wake up, so a couple of things that we want to do the day after launching is get testimonials, see how people feel about it. If they are stands, if they're like, oh my goodness, this is the best cereal that I've ever had in my entire life, get that feedback. The biggest seller, I think, and the the biggest seller that I think will always be word of mouth. And if you can get word of mouth, especially from other people in your target market, it works wonders. And it works better than I think any, paid marketing or paid advertising could ever work. So getting those testimonials and having that stuff written down to later go on your website or to be a social media post or whatever the case may be, I think is very important. And then, everything may not be stellar. Some people may not be excited. Oh, I got my cereal and it was in 1,000,010 pieces. We want to get that feedback. We want to appreciate the feedback. We want to appreciate, okay, you weren't completely happy, but, get that feedback and actually use it and implement it in however you can. So maybe my cereal was great to send from here to New York, but from here to LA, it didn't work too well. So what can I do to make sure that when it goes, to LA, that it is in good shape and it doesn't go into 10 million pieces. And then after that, after the launch day is really, we did a lot of work, but we have to do the work. So we have to continue to push our product. We have to continue to interact with our audience and interact with our fans and continue to, if it's a process, tweaking that process, making sure that experience continues. So of course we want to, get our clients in, we want to get our customers in, and we hook them in, but we want to make sure that their experience after that first day continues to be great, and they continue to enjoy it. Okay, so quick recap. So we went over what to research prior to launch. So prior to launch, we want to make sure that prior to launch, we want to make sure that we know who our target market is. We know where to find them. We know when is a great time to do our launch. We went over things to include in our creating our launch plan, pardon me. So things to make sure that we are, moving swiftly, whether that is a Google Docs and staying organized, how our process works, how we share our information about our service, all of those great things. And then creating that launch experience. So building that anticipation, building that conversation with our audience, and then resources that can help with these things. So from stock photos to Amazon, Etsy, things that can help us with launching. And that is it for me. Do I have any questions? I do see a few questions here.